Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tilly and today I'm going to be talking you through all of the books that I read during the month of January. So during January I read a total of 11 books. So in terms of book source, 2 were audiobook, 4 were ebooks, and then the remaining 5 were physical reads. Looking at the format, 10 were novels and then I read 1 manga. And then audience category, 5 of the books I read were adult, 1 was middle grade and 5 were young adult. And then if we look at genre, I read 1 contemporary, 7 fantasy, 1 historical and 2 non-fiction. And then in terms of ratings, 7 of the books I rated 4 stars and 4 were 3 stars. So it was a pretty good month in terms of reading. It would have been nice to get my first 5-star read. However, I do feel like I am quite strict on my 5-star reads and a book has to really blow me away in order to be 5 stars. There are several books on this list that are very close to getting 5 stars, but just something about them didn't quite get there, but I will discuss that as we start to go through them. So the first book that I read during January was a reread, and that was Lady Midnight for the By the Angel Along readathon. I absolutely loved rereading this book. It definitely brought a lot of it back to me. I absolutely adore the Blackthorns and I just want to wrap them up and protect them, especially Ty and Tabby. I love Emma as a main character. She is so badass and fierce. I love the dynamic between Emma and Julian, and it was actually parts of this that I completely forgot about and it was just a complete surprise. I have also noticed that this edition has a bonus chapter which I haven't read because I did my reread on my Kindle, so I'm definitely gonna have to check this out before I start Lord of Shadows. For those of you that don't know, this is the first book in the Dark Artifices series, which takes place after the events of the Mortal Instruments. I think it's several years after. It follows the Blackthorns, which are a family of shadow hunters led by their brother Julian and his parabatai Emma. There are laws in the shadow hunter world where parabatais can never fall in love, so you can kind of guess what kind of turn this book takes. But yes, I very much enjoyed my reread of this and it came out as 4 stars. My next read was the most adorable book and my first ever manga, and that is Cats Plus Gamer. I loved this book. I read it in one sitting. It was absolutely fantastic and very accurately depicted what it's like having a cat and being a gamer. There were so many times when I was reading this that I was like, yep, I can absolutely relate that to my cat Luna. And like I said, I absolutely flew through this. I did only rate this 3 stars, as although I did really enjoy it and it does what it says on the tin, it didn't quite warrant a rating higher than 3 stars for me personally. And then I read Gathering of Shadows for Schwobalong, which again, absolutely loved this book. V. Schwab's writing is absolutely phenomenal. I adore all of the characters within this series. Kel, Lila, Rai, I love all of them. I loved how this had sort of pirate elements and it had sort of like a magical game system. I can't tell you too much about this one because it is the second book in a series, but yeah, if you haven't read the Darker Shade of Magic series, I would highly recommend because it is just fantastic. I ended up rating this one 4.5 stars and as I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next book I actually listened to on audiobook and that was I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I'd heard so many people talking about this book and I wanted to see whether it lived up to the hype. I can absolutely vouch that it completely does live up to that hype. I think I said in my review, I do tend to review books on my Instagram, so if you are interested, I'll leave a link to my Instagram below and I'll pop it on screen. But I said it sounds really strange to say I enjoyed this book just because of the contents. If you didn't know, this book is a memoir written by Jeanette McCurdy in regards to her life growing up as a child actor, but it's very much about the relationship with her mother. I would definitely recommend looking up trigger warnings if you are interested in reading this book, but it was incredibly insightful, incredibly well written. The audiobook was absolutely fantastic. I would highly recommend listening to it via audiobook because it's read by Jeanette herself, but sometimes when she's reading it you can hear her voice break or the emotion coming through and it's just so harrowing. But I also ended up rating this one 4 stars as well. The next book I don't have a physical copy to show you as I read it on ebook, and that is Pet by Akwaeke Anesi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. This was a bit of a shorter read. I read it as part of a prompt for Gerbitathon, but I did really enjoy it. Pet follows the story of a monster that comes to life from a painting who is tasked with slaying the monsters of our world, even though we say that there are none. Again, I found this a really thought-provoking read. It's definitely got a lot of social commentary within it, and even though it's such a short book, it is packed full of a lot of great representation. It tackles some subjects really sensitively, and it was a really good read. And again, I rated that one 4 stars. Then I couldn't resist moving on to A Conjuring of Light after I watched the Schwabalong live show. The discussion that we had just made me instantly want to move on to the next book and find out what happened. Again, absolutely loved this one. I thought it was the perfect ending to a brilliant series. It is quite a chunky book, but I was just captivated throughout and I just thought it was brilliant. And again, rated this one 4.5 stars. Again, I can't really tell you too much about this one as it is the third and last book within a series, but I absolutely loved it and can't wait to read more from V. Schwab. Okay, so the next one might possibly be my most disappointing read of the month, and that was Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. This is the second book in the Percy Jackson series. Again, sorry, can't really tell you too much about this one as it is the second in a series. I have seen the second Percy Jackson film, so this one very loosely links with that, and so I was aware of a lot of the story. I didn't know why I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one. I can't quite pinpoint what it is. Since I have kind of said that I didn't enjoy this one as much, a lot of people have told me that it is the book in the series that they liked the least, and once you get onto the Titan's Curse, which is the next book in the series, it just goes up and up and up, and I'm really excited to continue this series. I wouldn't say this book was bad, it just wasn't as good as The Lightning Thief, and so for that reason I rated this one 3 stars. And then the next one I also don't have a physical copy to show you, and that is Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. I know a lot of people are going to have contrasting opinions as to whether you should read this book or not. For me personally, I grew up with Harry Potter, and so I was really interested to hear more about behind the scenes. I have quite mixed feelings about this book. Some parts I didn't find very interesting. It is again a memoir, so it covers Tom's life from growing up, being in the Borrowers, being in Harry Potter, to his life afterwards and the struggles that he's faced. I did enjoy the little tidbits from Harry Potter, and I found the section of after Harry Potter where he disclosed all of his struggles, I did find that quite interesting, but some parts were quite slow, so again I did end up rating this one 3 stars. Next is the book that is probably the most surprising and also has had the most differing views, and that is The Prairie of the Orange Tree. I'd love to say that I completely enjoyed this book, but for me it was a little bit disappointing as well. I think the main reason for this is, as we've said, this book is massive at around sort of 800 plus pages. Samantha Shannon is trying to pack so much into this one novel that I think it would have been so much better if it had been a series. I know that it is technically a series now because of Day of Fallen Night is coming out, but I just mean that that book, if she does split that up into various books, I think we could have delved a little bit deeper in some places and the pacing would have been better. For me, the pacing was just completely off and just felt really weird. It was so slow in some places, and then at the end it just felt really, really rushed. The other thing is that it is told from 4 perspectives. You are going to get some perspectives that you don't care as much about, and I definitely found this. And I was really wanting to rush back to some characters' perspectives and learn more about those characters and have them more fleshed out. And so yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointing read for me, and I ended up rating it 3 stars. I know a lot of people on BookTube absolutely love that series and it's a solid 5 stars for them, but I just didn't get the hype. The next book I read was God Killer. I did actually get a NetGalley arc for this one, but I didn't end up reading it before the book was released. This is the beautiful Waterstone edition with the lovely sprayed edges. I did end up reading this by ebook as I didn't want to end up damaging the pages. Does anyone else do this to protect their special editions? But yeah, I couldn't believe how short this book was, although I did really enjoy this one. This follows a god killer, this kind of gruff, no nonsense, yeah, badass god killer who underneath it all is a little marshmallow. There is also a little girl that is bound to the god of white lies, and also a knight. I'm not going to tell you too much more about the synopsis of this one as I think it's better you go in without knowing too much. This one is told from multi-perspective, but because you follow the characters mainly at the same point, like they all come together, I think it's done really well in this book. I also love the world, I love the story. It's definitely set it up as this is going to be a continued series, so I did rate this one 4 stars. And lastly, we have another NetGalley arc, which was probably the biggest surprise for me during this month. I kind of got the arc on a little bit of a whim, and that was Wayward by Emilia Clarke. Yeah, this book completely surprised me and was actually really, really good. It's kind of witchy, social commentary, it tackles things like male violence. Again, I would recommend looking up the trigger warnings, as some of the themes within this can be quite distressing, but it was just fantastic. It is definitely a really good feminist novel with lots of witchy undercurrents, and I absolutely love this book and I could just talk about it for ages. So if anyone has read it, please let me know. I'd love to discuss it with you. I ended up rating this book 4 stars, and I'm pretty sure it's out now. So if you are interested, I'm pretty sure you can probably get it now. So there we have it, all of the books that I read during January. What books did you read in January? What was your favourite? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.